Morning, Happy New Year, and welcome to our first Board of Commissioners meeting this 2025. I'm pleased today that we have Pastor Don Ezel with Turner Chapel AME Church. He will be providing our invocation. It will be followed by the pledge, which will be brought by firefighter John Ratledge. And just ask that you keep leaders of our community in your thoughts and prayers this morning, as we've had a number of persons of significance that have passed away in our community.
Good morning.
Yes, please stand for our invocation and pledge.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we come today thanking you for being the maker of all things and the creator of all humankind. Oh God, we come this morning as a gathering of your people, coming to do the will that you would have for each of us. God, we ask that you be with these commissioners, that you lead them, that you guide them, and that you allow them to govern in a way that is pleasing unto you. And God, for all the citizens that are here, we ask that you bless them and that you keep them. And now, oh God, even as we stand here thinking of those who may be without, those who are suffering in different cities and places. God, we ask that you continue to be with our friends in Los Angeles, for those who may have lost loved ones, and for those policemen and firefighters that have had to see so much. Now, oh God, we thank you one more time just for allowing us the opportunity to gather in a space and to live in a country where we have the freedom to disagree. Lord, we love you. It's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, firefighter Ratledge, and also again, Pastor Ezel. Before I call this meeting to order, I do want to thank all of you for being here today, and know that we've had recent storms here in the county, and want to publicly thank our first responders and our Department of Transportation for all of their work that they did in preparing and responding, and certainly can't leave out emergency management for being that glue that held everything together. And I know for some of us who are young at heart may have enjoyed some of that time in the snow, and certainly hope that everyone kept safe and warm during that time. As we start this meeting, I do want to acknowledge that even though it's a new year and it's a year of new beginnings, where we are mindful of all the positive things we want to accomplish, that we still have some challenges that are before us today on our Board of Commissioners that I just wanted to go ahead and address head on. This is a new elected term, and I'm grateful to serve again as chair. We do have a special election underway for both Districts 2 and 4, whose terms coincided with mine. Right now, they are on our dais serving as de facto commissioners, holding over from a prior term. Their successor to their seats has not been elected nor qualified. And there is some legal argument with respect to that I'd like to turn things over to our county attorney to explain, so it can be a little bit more clear about why we have all 5 commissioners here today.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Regarding the District 2 seat, the Board of Commissioners served a notice of vacancy on the District 2 Commissioner in September 2024. The Commissioner filed an appeal with Superior Court. On December 31st, 2024, the Superior Court issued an order upholding the board's notice of vacancy as to that District 2 seat, affirming that the seat is in fact vacant. Subsequently, the District 2 Commissioner filed an application for discretionary appeal of the vacancy determination with the Georgia Court of Appeals. The District Commissioner's application to appeal serves as a supersedious and allows the District 2 Commissioner to continue to serve at this time. As to both the District 2 and District 4 seats, in July 2024, the Cobb County Superior Court judge, during litigation involving the Board of Elections and Registration, issued an order vacating the district maps and elections of Districts 2 and 4. Consequently, no elections were held for these two districts in November of 2024. The term of those offices ended on December 31st, 2024. A special election was called by the Cobb County Board of Elections and Registration. Qualifying for the election has occurred in December of 2024, the primary scheduled for February, with the general election being April 29th. The most recent act creating the Cobb County Board of Commissioners, Georgia Act 562, reads in part, members of the board shall serve for terms of office specified therefore in this subsection and until their respective successors are elected and qualified. A sitting commissioner may cite to this language to support her decision to hold over and continue to serve as a commissioner until that special election is final or a successful challenge is brought. While the vacancy notice and holdover process and any other judicial determination plays out, the acts of an office holder, here in this case Districts 2 and Districts 4, are recognized as valid under Georgia law on the grounds of public policy and for the protection of those having official business to transact with the county. The general rule established that is the officer de facto doctrine. In a most recent case, the Court of Appeals held that it is well settled in Georgia law that though a person may be absolutely ineligible to hold any civil office, whatever in this state, yet his official acts while holding a commission as a public officer are valid, and that creates the officer de facto doctrine.
Thank you, Bill. We addressed this matter at length in our executive session yesterday, and I shared with commissioners that I would give them some time to address this morning. And I will begin with Commissioner Gambrill, and we'll just walk down the dais, as I know that there have been some statements that have been prepared.
Welcome to Cobb County's J6. Considering laws in totality means analyzing and interpreting a set of laws as a whole, taking into account how different laws interact and affect each other, rather than looking at them individually. It essentially involves evaluating the cumulative impact of all relevant legal provisions on a particular situation or issue. With no vote of the board or judicial determination, the county attorney's office has taken the position that one commissioner is now considered de facto and can continue to serve until their successor is elected, if they so choose to do so. There are no Georgia laws that govern de facto status, but has only been awarded by judges based on legal challenges. While the county attorney's office contends there is case law to support a commissioner continue to serve until a successor is elected, they continue to violate the equitable estoppel doctrine, which prevents one from asserting a claim or right that contradicts what one has said or done before, or what has been legally established as true. The Home Rule resolution precipitated an illegal action through the act of 3 commissioners and has been ruled unconstitutional multiple times. 2 former commissioners, with good intentions, are seated here today, even though their terms have expired and the state of Georgia no longer recognizes them as qualified elected officials. The Home Rule resolution enabled the board to avoid violating our state enabling legislation and allow a commissioner to serve while not residing within the district. This set off 2 years of legal challenges and ended with the primary election being invalidated due to an unconstitutional map used for qualifying and voting. Yet the very commissioner this resolution was set in place to protect did not re-qualify to serve in this position, claiming higher aspirations. In a recent hearing, which is now being appealed, it was argued that the Georgia legislator violated a constitutional procedure. Then why was a legal challenge not taken against the state in the Georgia General Assembly? Why did the county have to expend an unknown amount of taxpayer dollars to placate a novel concept that just removed an unqualified commissioner later than anticipated? All thanks to the county attorney's office fight to defend an individual commissioner, not an office. OCGA 1610-4 addresses this. OCGA 1311, quote, "No office to which a person has been elected shall be abolished, nor the term of the office shortened or lengthened by local or special act during the term for which such person was elected." Because of the unconstitutional Home Rule resolution, the chair of the Board of Commissioners is now extending the term of commissioners, compensating them with taxpayer dollars, which could be considered a gratuities violation, as the Board of Commissioners has not voted to approve such members to serve, and the state does not recognize them as qualified elected officials to serve in this capacity. The chair is refusing to enact Section 231, voting when vacancy exists in 2 or more posts. And while the county did seek the opinion of an outside attorney as to carryover, this opinion is currently being challenged in federal court. And last year, the Georgia legislature modified the term of the Public Service Commissioners to coincide with the newly ordered election. Maybe this is because OCGA 4521, eligibility and qualifications for office 8, all persons who are constitutionally disqualified for any clause. No legislation action has been taken to enable these commissioners to extend their terms beyond the legislated 4 years. On January 10th of 2023, I was wrongfully removed from the dais for not saying a word, only abstaining from voting as the board was acting in an unconstitutional manner, to which the courts have now concurred. Interestingly enough, the county attorney stated to the chair I had to be removed from the meeting. However, the law states that I could only be removed for that agenda item. Here we sit today, the county attorney refusing to provide direction that is not in conflict, and a chair who is allowing this to continue. Why I am being expected to participate in a potentially illegal meeting as if nothing unconstitutional occurred, now with individuals serving beyond their legal power or authority, also known as ultra-virus, I would like the clerk to record this statement with each and every vote going forward starting January 13th of 2025, so as not to be in violation of OCGA 451110. And also for the clerk's note, I do have all of those OCGAs recorded in my statement and would like them recorded as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Gamble. We'll hear from Commissioner Richardson.
Good morning. 4 years ago, an election occurred, resulting in the majority of these board positions having new faces, new positions, new faces. Every census year, which this coincided with, the legislature is to craft electoral maps. And because there are 159 counties, the legislature is to go through local delegations, put forward local law, and then get their local laws on the local calendar, which is like our version of consent agenda. This process protects the relationships that exist between the state legislators and those locally elected, so that state representatives who represent the area actually speak for the area they represent. This process, however, is only a gentleman's rule. And after the 2020 election, the state legislature bypassed this process and legally filed a general bill, jumping over the state representatives that represent Cobb County. According to the Constitution, the map is only required to be approved by the reapportionment office to be valid, by which it can then be passed by the General Assembly. In that year, 2 apportionment offices were filed by members of the General Assembly, 1154 and 1257. Only one was selected for a hearing by the reapportionment committee. Chaos ensued during this hearing as appropriate legal questions were surfaced by members of the local delegation and members of the Cobb County Commission. There was legal concern that the map would force this position out of office, and the state legislature's legal counsel indicated the novelty of the situation, and a chorus was developed of legislators and members of the community saying to just move since this seat elected was specifically impacted. It was at this moment that I turned to county staff and asked, is there not a way for the county to protect itself? Because wouldn't this affect every elected official? And the response was, we are looking into it. A while later, after research and conversations with ACCG and legislators who were present at the creation of the latest version of the Constitution, the use of home rule was pursued, by which the county contended that a map was a material and not a procedure. The apportionment office's approved map was then used under the Home Rule Amendment Clause. Please keep in mind that this contention has yet to truly be adjudicated, as the court case holding the question was thrown out. Later, due to an unrelated case, a ruling using knowledge based on the thrown out case called for the cancellation of the election last year, by which the county, for districts 2 and 4 specifically, by which the county voluntarily adopted the General Assembly's map. This created the vacancy by law, which I filed a challenge against. That was heard and decided on New Year's Eve at 3 p.m. Between then and yesterday at 1 p.m., all District 2 constituents had their emails forwarded and calls went to the front desk. During the snowstorm, there was no elected official in place. And when the ruling came down, I learned that an appeal to a higher court was available as a route. And after much consideration, I filed that appeal. And while that appeal is in place, a stay is in effect, and the current Acts 562 and other laws, have me continue to sit as a de facto commissioner. Some will say that it's unacceptable that I'm sitting on this dais. I would say not having 200,000 people represented for nearly half the year is unacceptable. I would say that the right for the General Assembly to remove elected officials at any point in their term is unacceptable. I would say that overturning elections is unacceptable. Just as some members of this board have sued the county for reasons they believe were important, so I also have the right to defend not just my constituents, but constituents all across this state in fighting the precedents that has been set. This fight was never about me, but protecting American values. Checks and balances, the process of the courts, the importance of elections, the voice of the voter, and even the election that is underway to determine my successor. Protecting American values is something we all claim to want. The courts will decide whether they hear this appeal, and if I only have 10 days to serve or 90, I will continue to show up for my constituents and serve them with excellence until I'm no longer able to. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Burrow.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. It's a new day, a new year, and a new day in Cobb. Or is it? For me, the composition of this board is the same as it was 2 years ago at our first meeting of the year in 2023. And as you recall, Commissioner Gambrill and I, who were just duly reelected in 2022, were removed from the meeting because we disagreed with the validity of this board. For 2 years, the majority of this board decided to challenge the state legislative map and operated under the home rule map. After several lawsuits, 2 court orders where the home rule map was deemed unconstitutional, the board finally, in September of 2024, implemented the state map and followed the law to give the District 2 Commissioner her notice to vacate her seat because she did not live in the district she represents. Now, we all said all along it was not fair that she was drawn out of her district in the middle of her term, and state law would have allowed her to remain, but our own local enabling legislation did not, and the legislature has to amend our local enabling legislation related to redistricting. A notice to appeal was filed by the District 2 Commissioner, and a court order on December 31st from Judge Ann Harris stated, and I quote, "The sole issue before the court is whether, under the map promulgated by Act 562, Richardson remains eligible to represent District 2. After consideration of the parties' briefs and argument, the amicus brief filed by the Attorney General, and the law, the court finds that as a result of Act 562, Richardson is no longer eligible to continue serving District 2, and the seat is vacant." This order is crystal clear. However, because of due process, which I understand everyone has a right to, the appellant has filed an application for discretionary appeal with the State of Georgia Court of Appeals. My question is, when will this stop? Enough is enough. Taxpayers should be furious at the time spent and the cost involved by the county on these actions. After all, the argument was she was drawn out of her district in the middle of her term, and this will set a precedent for future maps. December 31st was the last day of the 4-year term for both Districts 2 and 4. So actually, Richardson did serve her full 4-year term. And because she filed her application to appeal, she gets to stay past her term until the court decides, even though she isn't eligible and doesn't qualify since she doesn't live in the district she represents. As far as the argument that this will set a precedent, the bottom line is when it comes to redistricting, we, the county, do not have home rule powers. I've said all along that this should have never been done without unanimous consent from this board. I have opposed this from the very beginning, and I don't agree with what is happening again. I do understand majority rules, but in this case, does it rule even in unconstitutional issues? This may be a legal method, but to me, it's not right. It's gone on long enough, and it's time to put an end to ignoring the Constitution and the laws of the state and the county and get back to the real business of the county at hand. I, as all of my colleagues, took an oath to uphold the Constitution and laws of the United States, the state of Georgia, and Cobb County, and I intend to continue to follow the law. So, Madam Clerk, I would like this recorded before every vote today. Thank you.
Commissioner Sheffield, you may begin.
Thank you, Chair. All right, before I read my comments, I just want to address a couple of things that I've heard so far at this point. It was mentioned that the county attorney has taken a position to ensure that, or support the board members being on this board, primarily District 2 and 4. I just want to make it clear to the public that the county's attorney has not taken a position on anything. Instead, what the county attorney and the county attorney's office has repeatedly communicated the act in which the commissioners continue to serve in their role, and that's Act 562. The county attorney has also repeatedly communicated that it is upon the district commissioner to determine whether or not she will continue to serve. The county attorney has not made a decision with respect to my seat, nor can he, and I just want to make that clear. With respect to the first 2 years, and the unconstitutionality of us sitting in our seat for the first 2 years. I just want to make it clear that during those 2 years, there were agenda items passed that supported projects outside of District 2 and 4. Every agenda item to which we supported was given consideration for the betterment of the people of Cobb County. There has not been one agenda item that came before this board during that 2-year period from District 1 or 3 to which I nor Commissioner Richardson voted down simply because of the maps. We move forward with the business of Cobb County because that's what you all have elected us to do, and that's what we've been doing. Within that 2 years, during this unconstitutional period, we also passed the budget. A budget that would ensure that the business of the county would move forward and operate efficiently. A budget that would ensure that our employees are gainfully employed. A budget that would meet the commitment that we've made to our law enforcement officers for step and grade in their salaries. So when we look back at that 2-year unconstitutional period, I want you all to ask yourself, well, were there any gaps in efficiency at the county? Was the county able to move forward with the business of serving its constituents? And for me, that answer is yes. Now, I'll read my comments, clerk, that I would like to enter into the record, and from this meeting and any subsequent meetings. There have been claims, narratives, and beliefs suggesting that I am unlawfully occupying my seat. However, these assertions fail to recognize the explicit provisions set forth in the Georgia Constitution and Act 562 of Cobb Local Enabling Legislation. Both Act 562 and the county's enabling legislation contain language indicating that commission members will serve, quote, for the terms of office specified therefore in the subsection and until their respective successors are elected and qualified, meaning that commission members serve until their successor is elected and qualified. This provision was specifically designed to prevent any interruptions in representation of our residents, ensuring that the work of the Board of Commissioners continues without disruption, even amidst political division and discord. In the coming months, you may hear an attempt to draw similarities between Act 562, which is the Holdover Act, and OCGA Section 1-3-11, which is the local legislation on abolishing, shortening, or lengthening terms. There are considerable distinctions between the two. Act 562, to reiterate, refers to an official remaining in their position after their term have expired and until a successor is elected and qualified. A holdover period typically cannot alter the length of the official's term, as the role is temporary and tied to the delay of proper transition. The delay in this case is a special election. Conversely, OCGA Section 1-3-11 reads, the law reads that no office to which a person has been elected shall be abolished, nor the term of the office shortened or lengthened by local or special act during the term for which such person was elected, unless the same shall be approved by the people affected in a referendum on the question. Regarding impact on terms, holdover does not extend the official term. Again, it temporarily extends the time an individual serves in the role to bridge a gap. OCGA 1311 protects the integrity of the office and the term for which the official was elected. It directly prohibits lengthening or shortening terms by legislative action, not Board of Commissioner, but legislative action, ensuring that terms remain originally decided by voters unless a referendum says otherwise. As a holdover commissioner, as described in Act 562, I will retain full authority and responsibility of the office until the successor assumes the role. The resident of District 4 elected me in 2020 and overwhelmingly re-elected me in 2024 to continue to serve in this capacity. In an era of increasing polarization, it is important to remember that my role is not defined by partisan differences, but my commitment to serve the people of District 4. I will fulfill my duty to my community as the law has clearly outlined and work towards bridging divides, ensuring consistent and effective representation for all Cobb Countyans. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and thank you all commissioners. There are certainly varied perspectives with respect to where we are today. I do believe the public was due some explanation as to why we are here today. And again, I ask for you to take those into consideration, but also the comments of our county attorney with respect to the legal basis for where we are today. And just know, again, we are dealing with continuing challenges as acknowledged by Commissioner Burrow. And these things will be ultimately settled, if not before, when we have the general election for both District 2 and District 4 commissioner seats. With that, I'm going to call this meeting to order. And begin with the first matter that's on our agenda today. We do not have any presentations. We do have a public hearing by our Department of Transportation, and that will be brought by the DOT Director, Drew Ressler.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, County Manager. As you mentioned, the department does have one public hearing for your consideration this morning. King Springs Road Sidewalk is an eligible project under the Sidewalk Improvements component of the 2022 SPLOST Transportation Improvements Program and has been selected by the District Commissioner for funding. In accordance with state law, the board is required to conduct a public hearing prior to expending county funds of $100,000 or more to employ an independent consultant or consulting firm or to conduct an independent study or survey. To implement the King Springs Road Sidewalk project, the department anticipates awarding an engineering design contract that could exceed $100,000. Therefore, the department recommends that the Board of Commissioners conduct a public hearing prior to expending $100,000 or more for engineering design services for King Springs Road Sidewalk, project number B2745.
Thank you. For our public hearings, we allow an unlimited number of speakers to address this topic and this topic only, which is the King Springs Road Sidewalk Engineering Design Services. I'll open it up for any speakers. Note that we'll take an unlimited number, but you only have 3 minutes to address the board. Thank you, Drew.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name's Craig Harford. I know I speak about this every time, but using outside contractors, and it's always $100,000, there is no transparency. I mean, you should be putting up the campaign disclosure forms and the contributors, especially the engineering firms. I think that's the big problem. I mean, we could do engineering a whole lot of different ways. We could use Georgia State, Georgia Tech graduates, and pretty much these independent contractors hire them and do it on the cheap, and that's how they make their money. but why not do it directly? You know, you have interns and helpers around here, but from what I've seen of the projects, like Lower Roswell Road, there's a whole lot of uneven sidewalks that people could trip and fall on. And that project's, what, 10 years old or thereabouts? You're extending it, and it seems like where all the inverts are, the drains, they're deep in the ground, and they're the ones that stand up an inch higher than the sidewalks. The sidewalks fall down. And, you know, the county's good about, you report this and they fix it. But paying them a lot of money to do this thing, it's all in the how you know, if you don't compact the dirt enough under the sidewalk, they sink, they crack, a whole lot of stuff goes down, but you're gonna build all these public hazards. You know, you're building these sidewalks, and yet 10, 15 years later, they're trip and fall hazards. So I don't think that this is a very transparent way of, you know, saying we're gonna bid this out. And a lot of money gets spent, and a lot of it comes back in campaign contributions, which is a whole political science discussion, how you launder campaign contributions to get people elected to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers?
Ray Emkin, resident of Cobb County for the last 25 years. I have an engineering background. $100,000 to hire a consultant to do work that I would assume we have the necessary engineering talent in our Cobb DOT to do a project such as a sidewalk and related services to addressing the sidewalk issue. Do we not have talent in the DOT, engineering talent, that have the necessary background and qualifications to do that? If we don't, $100,000 to be spent on a single project could hire such a person that has the necessary background, who would be available to the county as an employee, as an engineering services employee, to work for an entire year on projects where not an additional penny would be necessary. I ask you to consider, if you're going to spend $100,000 on a consultant, and we don't have the necessary engineering talent, which would surprise me, to do the same work, I would suggest opening up a position where $100,000 could be used to hire such a person full-time and handle projects for a full year and beyond. That would be my suggestion and comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have, okay, we do have another speaker.
Hello, Chairwoman, Commissioners. I hate to correct my husband, but I was saying, hey, it might exceed, it's going to exceed $100,000. We get these consultants, and I concur with what he said, with what Craig Harfoot said, and the thing is that we keep doing this, so we don't know it's going to exceed 100,000. Does that mean it's 300,000? And I know that you're following the code, and you don't have to tell us how much it is, but I recommend we start being a little more transparent if you want people to really know, for the citizens to trust you. Like if I said to my husband, hey, I'm going to Macy's and I likely will exceed spending $100, and I come home with $1,000 worth of clothes, is he going to trust me when I go to Macy's that I'm going, you know? Like I was honest, I was transparent. I said it was going to be over $100. So think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers to address the board on this matter? Okay, not seeing any, we'll close the hearing. Drew, I'll ask that you please approach the podium. I'm not the subject matter expert in purchasing, but I do want to address the last speaker, which may address some of the other comments. When a consultant is selected, that matter does come before the board with the identification of who that consultant is and the specific amount. So it's telling your husband, you might spend this amount, but before you make that purchase, you're going to pick up the phone and call him and say, I have this item in my hand. This is how much it costs. And you might tell him a little bit more detail about it. We will certainly tell you more detail about it. It's just to provide the public hearing, which gives the opportunity for people to weigh in. As for our continuing use of consultants, Drew, I would like for you to address why we are choosing to use a consultant in this instant and why we have that practice of utilizing consultants within the department.
Of course, and I'd be glad to address the life cycle of a project as well from a purchasing standpoint. This is some analysis we did very recently. So in terms of the visibility into projects, capital funding and projects, and then ultimately consultant selections. Initially, the projects are identified, in this case, out of the SPLOST program. So they all come out of that SPLOST booklet. And then before we're able to move on, a number of things have to happen depending on the procurement avenue that we take. If it is something that is competitively bid, where RFPs are solicited, then it is two steps of this public hearing, where it first comes before the board to authorize holding the public hearing, and then ultimately coming before the board just like this for the actual public hearing, as well as authorizing the issuance of those RFPs. At which point the selection process begins once those proposals are received. The board then sees it again for an agenda item to rank the top three ranked consulting firms in order to authorize negotiations with the top ranked. That top ranked, once a contract is selected, finally comes back. So there's at least 4 times that comes back before the board under a traditional RFP. In this particular case, this is coming under a master task order contract. And actually, master task orders are coming forward here soon. We're at the end of our life cycle for those, but it's a 3-year contract with a number of different firms that allow us to enter into design much quicker. And those go through their own procurement process that include the initial public hearing authorization, the actual public hearing, and then a selection process, and ultimately a contract award. And then when it comes time for a particular project, in this case, King Springs Road Sidewalk, we solicit a number of those task order contractors. In this case, we expect the budget to be $200,000. Identifying that it's going to be more than $100,000, it does trigger the state law requirement for the public hearing. But then, once we receive those, and we anticipate in the case of this project to receive those bids this week, those will be evaluated, at which point we will bring forward an agenda item in February for the board to see. So that will be part of the board's agenda, like I said, either first or second meeting in February. And then in terms of the other part of the question, Chairwoman, on why consultants? Why do we utilize them? Within our engineering section, we are positioned, we are managing dozens of projects across the county. From drainage to sidewalk to traffic signals to widenings, new alignments. It's a wide variety of sidewalks of projects, excuse me, and each project requires its own level of expertise. That includes surveying, geotechnical engineering, bridge structural engineering, hydraulic and hydrology, analysis to determine the sizing of those roadway pipes, traffic engineers to determine both on the concept phase and then into design phase for signing, marking, traffic signals. And each of those areas is its own expertise. And so in order to build out a staff, which is possible, and DOTs of past had this, it would require a significant number of different individuals, all with varying expertise in those areas, to be able to successfully deliver the program that we have. In order to be competitive, to match the speed at which the public expects those projects to be delivered, by contracting it out, we're able to select those firms that have those expertise in-house, And our department is positioned more in a project manager position, where we have about a half dozen project managers in-house and embedded consultants that allow us to manage these design contracts to move them forward into construction as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Drew. And with respect to selection of consultants, can you talk through that selection process? And once they submit their RFPs, who's reviewing those RFPs before it comes before the Board of Commissioners?
Of course. So initially, in this case, because this is not a traditional RFP, has a selection committee that is a crosscut of the department of the county. That selection committee has to be approved by the county manager. In this case, that process happened on the front end for the master task order contracts. So we have, depending on the category, and there's 6 different categories of master task order contracts. It was that same committee that selected those contracts and then selected that about half a dozen per category. And then in the case of these task orders, what we do is try to make sure each of those master task order contractors has the opportunity to do work. So we make sure that it is distributed amongst those that were successful in that initial bid.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any other questions for Drew?
I don't have any questions, but this is in the new District 4, but it was in District 2, so I'll defer to Commissioner Richardson.
I was just going to extend a thank you. I mean, it's an important project. A lot of members of the community have been wanting to see this, and certainly the city as well. So just thank you for the collaboration on that part. Not a real question.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I know we've had a number of questions from the public with respect to our public hearings, which, as was stated, is required by law. If there's a way that we can better connect the dots so it's clear when we're bringing it back and how it's connected, please let us know from what you heard today. We are not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. This is an exhaustive process, but it's one that clearly is not clear enough for persons to have some trust in the process. You may not necessarily think that we should have outside consultants and still think we should do that in-house, and perhaps that's worth us having some further discussion. But I just want to make the process more clear. For the commissioners, we are voting at the very last step after it's been reviewed by a selection committee that we are not aware of until it comes before us in an agenda item. We're just looking to really make sure the process has been followed, and perhaps I can count on one hand over the 12 years that I've been here a time where we've questioned what has been brought before us and have asked staff to go back and answer some additional questions. But we typically are the last part of that process, usually looking at it from a high-level perspective. Drew, thank you for sharing that. Our public hearing is closed, and we do have another comment. Go ahead, Commissioner Gamble.
Well, just to kind of follow up with what you just stated, asking Drew. So is there a way to tie, I'm going to use this agenda item as an example, this public hearing date into the agenda when you put it forth for us to vote on?
It ties back. It doesn't currently tie forward. So, in other words, when that agenda item comes before the board in February, it will list out, and typically there's an opening paragraph giving a high-level description, and then there's some history items within the background. This public hearing today would be part of that background.
So the date of the public hearing is in there as well?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any other questions or comments for Drew? Thank you, Drew, for walking us through that today.
Thank you.
With that, we do have our first public comment.
As the board provides the podium for public comment, it's appropriate to review the related meeting rules. Please state your name and if you're speaking on behalf of an organization. All comments should be made to the commission as a body and addressed through the chair. Public comment is not a dialogue with the board, but an opportunity for speakers to provide their comments to the board. Comments should not be slanderous. The board encourages, regardless of the topic, for the audience to be respectful and courteous to all the speakers. Everyone attending this meeting should give others the right to both listen and be heard by treating each other with civility. Statements made during the public comments portion do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the board or the administration of Cobb County government. And there is a timer on the podium to keep track of your 3 minutes. The first speaker is Donald Barth.
Good morning, ladies and uninvited guests. I first want to point out that this is a time of year that we think about Martin Luther King. In fact, his real birthday is tomorrow. His celebrated day is next Monday. But a quote from Martin Luther King, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." Well, by God, Cobb County matters. Matters to some of us. Some people take Cobb County like an iron whale turd, low as they can go, low as it can get. We need to take back Cobb. All the citizens need to take it back. You're not in charge. You are a chairwoman sitting in a seat directing the flow from all of their input, not your input. When we take back Cobb, we have to get rid of the nods. I'm nodding out. A nod is easy to see. They have no backbone. You can look through their ears. The only transparency you see is when you look through their ear, because you can see right through there. There is no brain. They're followers. They don't think. Now, when a nod comes up, you can also see there's no spine, none whatsoever. Somebody says, do this, and they all fall in line. Jim Jones did that years back. He said, there it is, drink the Kool-Aid. Well, we got some Kool-Aid drinkers up here. One of you said, well, we did projects all around Cobb. Oh, God, yes, the Nod Squad did many. You gave a developer the right to develop at the end of the Dobbins runway. You knew better than that. You were told not to do that. But then you turned around and gave the developer a prime piece of real estate on Terrell Mill, and you took the back 40. That stank. The Nod Squad went after the cities in Cobb County. We have shared assets where we use the same police, fire, whatever, and there's a certain amount of money to be divided up. You wanted to keep that. The Nod Squad got together and said, oh, heck yeah, let's take their money. I could go on and on with the projects that the Nod Squad came together and nodded out on. We've got to get out of that Nod Squad. It's not partisan. It's something
Mr.
deeper
Barth,
than
your
that.
time's up. The next public speaker is Mr. Emkin.
Leroy Emkin, Cobb County resident. I'm not an attorney. My background is engineering. I did have an opportunity to read the Georgia Supreme Court's ruling regarding the home rule case or effort. I also attended the hearing in Judge Harris's court. And so I can only give you a non-attorney's interpretation, like the public's interpretation, what I think is an interpretation by much of the public. In reading some of the Georgia Supreme Court's ruling, I heard some of the same arguments that our attorney made some time ago today. And yet the Georgia Supreme Court ruled that in spite of those arguments that claimed that the home rule might have been appropriate, the Georgia Supreme Court ruled it was against the Georgia Constitution. That should be sufficient. Home rule was unconstitutional, changing district boundaries. Only the state legislature has that authority, period. And then in Judge Harris's court, I read her ruling, of course, listened to all the testimony and read the ruling, and she ruled that Commissioner Richardson, her seat had to be vacated. She heard I heard all the same arguments that were said here by our attorney, trying to justify why Ms. Richardson should, her seat not be vacated. And I heard Ms. Richardson's comments today, and yet Judge Harris, in considering all the arguments that were made in her court, ruled that Ms. Richardson's seat had to be vacated, period. She, of course, has the right to appeal, and that's the beauty of our country and our legal system. You have the right to appeal. And I'm looking forward to hearing what the result of that appeal will be. But to make some comments during this meeting, trying to explain why home rule was really appropriate and legal, and why Ms. Richardson should be seated, we're absolutely against the Georgia Supreme Court's ruling and Judge Harris's ruling. I mean, I heard an explanation of why Ms. Richardson should be sitting there as if Judge Harris was incorrect.
Mr. Empkin, your time is up.
In her interpretation of the law. I don't think Judge Harris was incorrect.
The next speaker is Christine Rossman.
Hello again. Yeah, I would like to talk to also about this home rule charade, and then it just created a tremendous amount of chaos for Cobb County, and we keep funding it, right? So the thing, it's like, oh, we're just trying to, no, seriously, you're costing us millions of dollars that could go somewhere else. And the fact that we are dancing around this and acting like it's real, it's like playing charades with something that's not real. So this is why we don't trust you guys, because you try to paint something that isn't there. Like the UDC. I was looking online on the URL for it, for Cobb's UDC, and it's like, what's the UDC and why does Cobb need it? You know what? Cobb doesn't need it, okay? But this is the kind of propaganda that you come up with that people are like, oh my God, we need this. Just like we needed that, the ADUs or whatever that one was. Why we need the trash to be doing, you taking over trash. Why we need to have another tax for rainwater. Okay, all these things, I keep saying it, but it keeps getting clearer and clearer. It's all about that whole World Economic Forum and the UN, and they want to put Agenda 21, which they missed that loop, and so now it's Agenda 2030, Agenda 2050. It's all about getting everybody in a small, condensed area. That's why, nothing is organic that you guys come up with. Oh, we want to go green. How can Cobb go green? It's like, seriously? This stuff, you guys are making stuff up all the time. In fact, one of the big makeups is, let's talk about it, DEI. DEI is all made up. Look at all the companies that are getting rid of DEI. Wikipedia, Disney, Walmart, okay? Everybody's getting rid of it, and guess what? Hey, President-elect Trump has told Lockheed CEO he plans to cancel a $1 trillion F-35 contract because China is winning the fight race while Lockheed sends executives to DEI camps. So do you think that's going to have an impact on Cobb? Yes, it is. Thank you.
The next speaker is Timothy Reese.
Hi, live in Cobb County, Smyrna, and
Sir, just state your name again for the record.
Timothy Rice.
Timothy Rice, thank
I
you.
brought my checkbook. How much more money would you like from our family? How much more money would you like from my neighbors? About 30 of us in our community, half of them African American, with kids. Legalized theft is what I consider the tax increase on property tax. About $1,500 for most of us in my neighborhood. That's about, let's call it $50,000, which sounds like we could probably get our own security guard or police person to monitor their neighborhood. Not that we need it. Have a lot of respect for the men in uniform in this community. Good people. What I'm really here to tell you about is I really didn't even know who my commissioner was until this past November. I do remember 10 years ago when we moved here, the commissioner came into our community and sat down with people. No idea you were my commissioner. I don't know where you are or if you've ever even sent a note to the House. Not that you have a budget to do that, but didn't even know you were my commissioner. What I'd like to say to those who are on this commission and voted for SPLOST, I am so happy that your hats were handed to you by the citizens of this community. You've got enough of our money, you've got way too much money, and it's high time that you were more responsible with it, even just based on what I was hearing today about consultants. Cobb County has more money than they know what to do with. And you guys, not all of you, have been happy just to be like, hey, let's have fun. It's not meant to be that way. Thank you.
The next public speaker is Denny Wilson.
Good morning. Happy New Year, you guys. First of all, this morning, I want to give a
I'm sorry,
big,
Denny, just
huge
go ahead
shout
and
out.
state your name again for the
Oh, I'm
record.
sorry.
It's okay.
You take away from my minutes when you do that.
It stopped. The clock has stopped.
Denny Wilson, District 4. First of all, I want to give a big shout out to Cobb DOT. I mean, they were Johnny on the spot. That storm, which I believe was a tornado, but you guys are calling it a storm. I mean, it woke me up that morning, and I heard it. I mean, my house is four-sided brick, and it shook my house from side to side. I mean, I had to get up out of my bedroom and run up front. And the hailstorm came immediately afterwards, and I mean, it was hitting my windows like somebody was throwing rocks. So I want to give a big shout out to DOT for coming out the very next day and taking care of most of the debris that had fallen and blocked the streets and the roads where we couldn't move around. And my next shout out I want to give to the Cobb Police. I had to do a wellness check for a 97-year-old lady that lived on Six Flags Parkway. And they immediately came out. They spent over an hour with me trying to make sure that this lady was okay. And we ended up finding out that her daughter had gotten her right before the storm. But her electronic gates was covered, her yard was covered, and there was no way she could have gotten out of there. So again, thanks to Cobb Police for everything that they did. And Chairwoman Cupid, I don't think I've ever called you Chairwoman either. I watched your inaugural ceremony, and I watched your speech about taking the crowd to church. And what I saw was a young lady that I saw and I supported back in 2013, 14-ish, when you were first elected. And when I saw your young sons come up and speak about their mom, that's the person that I knew and I admired back then. And I hope you are sincere in your speech, and I hope you go back to being that person. I truly do, because I want to support the Board of Commissioners, every one of you guys, but I want you also to support the communities. And I also want you to take into consideration that there's a lot of people out there who are less fortunate than you. And I want you to be able to take care of those people. That's all I ask, and that's my New Year's resolution, that's my New Year prayer, and I'm not bringing anything from last year into the new year. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Craig Harfoot.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name's Craig Harfoot. It's really amazing. The East Coast, we all got snowed. California's burning down. What's that got to do with it? One another? Global warming? Nah, it's the sun. I'll keep telling you that because now the real scientists are starting to talk. The ones that don't get grants because they add due to climate change after they present a paper, you know. But anyhow, this UDC, Uniform Development Code, this is not a Cobb County thing. This is a template that's national. They got this thing in California. So California burns down. It's like Rome under Crassus. You know, you heard the term riches crassus or Croesus. But the thing was, he's one of the leaders of Rome, and he's basically, they set fires in Rome, and he's negotiating with the owners of the property, buying it all up. That's how he got rich. And he was a contemporary of Nero and Julius Caesar. And the funny thing is, it looks the same. You know, I was talking to my cousin yesterday, and she was telling me about Newsom, someone gifting him $1 billion property. You know, and it reminded me of Bill Byrne and John Moore handing him a farm up here. And it's sort of what got him out of office here. And the whole point is, if we're Rome, we're at end of empire. And if you care about people and poor people, we can't have assessing $400,000 for land. Now, I know they're talking about the end of Dobbins, but on the other end of Dobbins, there's these housing that were built for the people who worked at Lockheed. And I was over there at an estate sale recently, and I asked, how much is this house? And she goes, $350. Well, apparently the whole neighborhood's $350. It's in Smyrna. Now, these are just factory housing for Dobbins at the end of that field. What was it? I can't think of the name, some church road. It used to be a black community. Now it's a Hispanic community. But anyway, not affordable. Not affordable. And it's like, are you going to burn this down next? And this is what the UDC's for? You know, think about that. We don't need to adopt a national UDC. If you really believe in home rule, you'll keep it a home rule over zoning. You won't adopt some national plan to go high density. Thank you.
The next public speaker is Tracy Stevenson.
Good morning. I sat here from this podium, stood
Sorry,
here
Mr.
from
Stevenson, state
Tracy
your name.
Stevenson, I'm
Thank you.
sorry.
It's okay.
I had my mind on what I was going to say. But I've stood here at this podium multiple times. I've supported Ms. Richardson staying in office till the end of her term. I've also supported the Constitution and what maps were valid. And here we are again. We don't really have it resolved. I sat here and listened to about 30 minutes of everybody else's explanation of what it is, and I've got 2 minutes and 33 seconds left. I could go on all day. I'm not quite sure. I would love to take it for certain that you were as altruistic as you say, Ms. Richardson, but I don't think I can go that route. Because ultimately, I haven't been represented. I've been one of those impacted people in District 2. So I don't really know who represents me. And when I come to this and I keep thinking about it, I go, you know, this all could have been resolved so simply with a revision to the charter 2 years ago. It troubles me that we keep having the same conversation over and over again and not getting yet a different result. I think the extension of terms is a little bit disingenuous, to say the least, only because, say you'd been successful against Lucy McBath in District 6 congressional seat run. On January 3rd, you would have taken an oath there. Would you have said, no, I can't go to Washington. I need to stay here and serve my people because of this problem until that's over with. I hazard to guess, no, you would not have said that. And so that's why I kind of want to leave you with a little quote from Macbeth. You know, Shakespeare is timeless. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day, to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools, the way to dusty death. Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. I feel like we're there now. We're just replaying it over and over and over again. We've not resolved anything. Thank you.
Chairwoman, this is the last public speaker.
Okay, thank you, Bill. With that, we are now at our consent agenda. The items on our consent agenda have scrolled on the screen prior to our meeting and will do so at its conclusion. Commissioners, I have one matter on here that was revised. It's agenda item number 22 for the police department. Pam, if you can talk through that revision.
There's just an update to the background. They just updated some language to match the grant language.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Everyone should have that on their pink sheet. Commissioners, are there any other observations you would like to make with respect to the consent agenda before we vote on it? Commissioner Burrow.
Madam Chair, before we vote on the consent agenda, I would like to resubmit my statement to the clerk because we read our statements prior to the meeting being called.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And I, too, would like to resubmit my statement for the clerk to record with every vote going forward.
Pam, can you clarify that all the statements read can be recorded as requested by commissioners?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other observations? With that, Commissioners, I move that we approve the items on our consent agenda as it has been revised and to authorize execution of the necessary documents by the appropriate county personnel.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call the question. And the motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Ross. That's success. Our systems are working.
Yeah.
All right. We will now move on to the regular portion of our agenda, and the first tab up is transportation.
Good morning again, Drew Ressler, DOT. The department has just 3 items for your consideration on the regular tab. Our first item is to recommend the Board of Commissioners approve a preliminary engineering agreement with Georgia Northeastern Railroad Company, LLC, in the estimated amount of $15,000 for preliminary engineering review services of Canton Road at Lake Drive, Old Noonday Schoolhouse Road, project number B2311, authorize a corresponding budget transaction, and further authorize the chairwoman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Burrow.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Our next item is to recommend the Board of Commissioners adopt a resolution authorizing the submission of a Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity grant application to the U.S. Department of Transportation for the Cobb Parkway at McCullum Parkway, Kennesaw Due West Road, Old 41 Highway Realignment Project. Designate department staff as the authorized representatives for all matters associated with the raised grant application, and authorize the chairwoman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Gambrill.
So moved.
Second.
All right, is there any further discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And our final item this morning is to recommend the Board of Commissioners approve a contract with Exceller Construction LLC in an amount not to exceed $322,400 for drainage system repairs on Riverside Parkway, project number B2221. Authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairwoman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Sheffield.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Gambrill in opposition.
Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. We are now at the Public Services tab, and we have Parks up.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, Madam County Manager. We do have one item for consideration this morning. It's for the Board of Commissioners to approve a contract with Crown Retail Services Incorporated to construct a new pavilion at Hyde Farm Park under the 2016 Park Splash program. The sheltered pavilion would be situated next to the existing operations barn for patrons to use as a picnic space, staff programming, and as a relief area from the weather. We asked the Board of Commissioners to approve the contract with Crown Retail Services Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $226,550. Authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairwoman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Burrow.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call the question. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
With that, I believe that takes us to our second public comment.
There's no one signed up for that portion.
Okay, thank you, Bill. We are now at our appointment tab. And the first matter is with Commissioner Burrow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to announce the reappointment of Chip Kaczynski to the Airport Advisory Board and thank him for his service.
Thank you, Commissioner. Then Commissioner Gambrill.
I'd like to announce the appointment of Shirley Murphy to the Keep Cobb Beautiful. She is replacing Dora Locklear, who we appreciate her service.
Thank you. And I'd like to announce the reappointment of Trey Spivey to the Property Advisory Commission. Thank you, Trey, for serving, and appreciate you continuing another 4 years. That now takes us to the Commissioner's public address. Okay, you can begin whenever you're ready, Commissioner.
What?
You can begin whenever you're ready. We're at the Commissioner's public address.
Well, usually you say Commissioner Gambrill, so I'm sorry, I was waiting for you to clarify which commissioner you were going to begin with. Our first town hall is coming soon. Your input is crucial in helping us structure the event around relevant topics, allowing for meaningful questions, and ensuring you receive direct information from Cobb County Department staff. You can please email your topic discussions, questions, or feedback to myvoices@cobbcounty.org. We'd love to hear from you, and keep watch of our newsletter for a date coming soon. Simple acts of kindness can help improve our community. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s question of, "What are you doing for others?" should be a constant reminder that a spirit of volunteerism is necessary to a successful society. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Gamble. We'll now go on to Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you. So from the office, as I shared, things will be back online. And before I get that far, though, I want to say thank you to Megan. She did serve our office for almost 2 years, did an incredible job, and just wanted to formally thank her in a public forum for all of her work and commitment, passion, and compassion for the community. And welcome Zoe, who is in the audience right now. Zoe will be joining the office today as the commissioner's assistant, so we will be able to field any concerns that you may have coming to the office. And it is basically her day one, so give her a little bit of grace as we get the wheels turning. So yes, thank you, Megan, and welcome Zoe. At the end of last year, we had our capstone showcase. We had about 20 or so students that participated in the capstone internship, and they had a chance to showcase all of their projects that they worked on for the semester. They did a fantastic job, received some really nice certificates, and really looking forward to what they'll go on to do in the future. As you know, we do capstone every year. We've had nearly 100 students go through our capstone internship program. So congratulations to these students. And volunteer positions are still open. Well, they'll be open tomorrow with the office, so if you are interested in getting involved in your community, as you know, that's how we structure this office. So if you want to have a hands-on approach to seeing things happen, please be on the lookout for those volunteer positions, and certainly it goes for the extent to however this appeal plays out. But we want to continue to deliver that service each and every day, so do know that those applications will be open tomorrow for volunteer positions. And community huddles, we'll have the next community huddle on Thursday, so those will be starting up again. Those are open forums for us to talk about anything that's on your mind. You determine the agenda, and we just go through, I answer questions, whatever you may have as a concern. So feel free to join those huddles. And then from the community, MLK Day celebration event. MLK Day is coming up. Cobb County NAACP is hosting its annual Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration. Mission Possible, Protecting Freedom, Justice, and Democracy in the Spirit of Nonviolence 365. The MLK Day celebration event will be held from 10 a.m. to noon at the Jenny T. Anderson Theater. Next, discover how to join an upcoming festival. Join us for the Cobb Parks Spring Arts Festival on Saturday, April 26, 2025. Artisans, crafters, and food vendors are invited to show off their creativity at Cobb Parks Vibrant Spring Arts Festival. You can scan there, submit your application by March 26th. And of course, upcoming meetings, upcoming huddles, calendar is always open to the public. Feel free to use it to schedule time with me, and I encourage you to sign up for the newsletter. That concludes my announcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll go to Commissioner Burrow.
Experience the new and improved Gritters Library. In-person programs for all ages are on the 2025 calendar for the new Gritters, wrong slide, new Gritters Library. Check out what the new and improved Gritter Library has to offer, including space for Cobb Works and Cobb Parks, Northeast Cobb Community Center. There's some flyers in the back of how to contact the library, the Cobb Works, and the Northeast Cobb Community Center. Superior Pets for Patriotic Vets. This cute hound dog was adopted by Miss Nixon as she and her friend watched this beautiful lady wander their neighborhood for almost a year before they were finally able to catch her after they had caught her 7 puppies. They decided to come back and adopt her. She's number 260 of our adoptions through this program and the generosity of Superior Plumbing. Ms. Nixon served 25 years in the U.S. Army, so we appreciate her service and for adopting this beautiful hound dog beagle. As Commissioner Richardson referenced, Monday is Martin Luther King Day, and there are a lot of activities going around in the cities and in the county, and the NAACP will have an event at the Jenny T. Anderson Center Monday, at 10 a.m. And I would like to just read one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Martin Luther King. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. So happy Martin Luther King Day. There's also a lot of other things going on the 20th with the national championship, and unfortunately the dogs aren't in there, but, and also the president's inauguration. So a lot going on. And also next Tuesday, instead of zoning, we have comp plan amendments. They are online at the community development page if you want to go through them. But that will be our vote for passing or denying those on the 21st at 9 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Sheffield.
Thank you, Chair. Okay. District 4 news and updates. Join the Cool Kids Committee for their upcoming events, Cooking and Conversation, Prom Project Collection Event, and Vision Board Party. The Austell-based organization is a 501c3 nonprofit that offers mentors, tutors, educational support, community involvement opportunities, physical fitness programs, and much more. Their focus is to empower young people by improving their self-confidence and academic success to encourage them to become leaders. Please email ckc@ckcinc.org by Wednesday, January 15th to register for the Cooking and Conversation event. Join Cobb Collaborative for a ribbon cutting for a Little Free Library on Friday, January 17th in Austell. The Little Free Library organization's mission is to be a catalyst for building community, inspiring readers, and expanding book access for all through a global network of volunteers. Please bring a book to help stock the new library. The event will take place at 6128 Bowden Street in Austell. On Monday, January 20th, our offices will be closed to honor the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. This year would have marked his 96th birthday. Dr. King is recognized as one of the most influential leaders of the civil rights movement and an American hero. I encourage everyone to take the day on and not off to volunteer in your community. The time is always right to do what is right. Let's utilize this day to reflect on the impact of Dr. King's work, and let's continue to fulfill his dream. Attention District 4, special election has been scheduled for February 11th, stemming from a court ruling on a lawsuit related to District 2. While the boundary lines for District 4 have shifted slightly, I encourage you to visit your voter page at mvp.sos.ga.gov to confirm whether you are within the new District 4 boundaries. Special elections often see low turnout, so it's critical that you show up and make your voice heard. Let's ensure our community is represented. Do not miss this opportunity to vote. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you all of you for tuning in today. We look forward to working with all of you for this upcoming new year. There are a lot of opportunities to get involved in the different offices in Cobb County, so I encourage you to please reach out to your district commissioner to see how you can engage. I will certainly have things in my newsletter as I look forward to serving with all of you this upcoming term. With that, thank you, and we'll see you at our next Board of Commissioners meeting.